Have you ever loved someone who made you feel like you were their entire world, only to wake up one day and realize you were just a chapter they had already closed? That sudden emptiness, that chilling silence, isn't just heartbreak. It's a calculated withdrawal, a quiet signal that the narcissist has already moved on, while you're still clinging to what no longer exists. There's no fight, no dramatic breakup, just an absence. You speak, they scroll. You open your heart, they check the time. You pour your soul out, and all you get is a lifeless nod. And somewhere along the way, you start asking yourself, what did I do wrong? But the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just waking up from an illusion crafted with charm, control, and manipulation. What you're experiencing now are 8 silent signs, small, almost invisible shifts that signal one painful truth. The narcissist is emotionally finished with you. In today's video, we're going to break down each of these subtle yet devastating signs, not to hurt you further, but to set you free, so you can stop blaming yourself and start reclaiming your power. Watch this video until the end because you deserve to know the truth, and more than that, you deserve to take back control of your own heart. And if you're on a journey toward truth, strength, and emotional healing, hit that subscribe button now. This path isn't easy, but you are never walking it alone. Silent signal 1, emotional absence disguised as normal. They're still there, sitting beside you on the couch, going to events with you, even saying goodnight or have a great day. But something feels deeply wrong. An invisible gap is widening between the two of you. There's no yelling, no dramatic fights, no official breakup, just one person who is no longer truly present. When a narcissist begins to withdraw from the relationship, the first and clearest sign is emotional absence. They may still be physically present, but mentally and emotionally, they've already left. They still talk, still interact, but their responses have become shallow, like they're just playing the role of a partner without any real feeling behind it. You tell them what made you happy today. They respond with a flat, "Oh." You cry. They glance at the clock. You open up about something meaningful. They change the subject. Your emotions, whether joy or pain, don't seem to reach them anymore. This isn't momentary indifference. It's a strategic retreat. To a narcissist, emotional connection is never built on empathy or genuine care. It's built on utility, what you offer them. Praise, admiration, obedience. When those things begin to fade, they don't ask for more. They just begin to drift while still sitting right next to you. And that's what makes you feel like you're losing your mind, because they're technically there, still using familiar phrases, but emotionally, it's like a shell of the person you once knew. Their presence without their soul makes you question your own sanity. You wonder, am I being too sensitive? Am I overthinking this? But deep down, your intuition is screaming the truth. You're no longer their center. Instead of eye contact, they stare at their screen. Instead of comforting you with a hug, they claim to be too busy. The gestures that once made you feel safe have vanished without a trace, and you start making excuses for them. But somewhere deep inside, you know the connection has been severed. What makes this phase especially cruel is that it's subtle. There's no big moment, no clear end. Just piece by piece, they erase you from the emotional center of the relationship. And you keep performing your role, hoping that the loving version of them will come back. But what you're chasing is an illusion. That sweet, caring version of them was a mask used to hook your emotions and keep you attached. Now that they've drained what they needed, they no longer feel the need to perform. Still, they don't walk away just yet. They keep you close as a backup source of supply. They throw you scraps of attention, just enough to keep you confused and emotionally hooked. But the truth is, it's not affection, it's control. And if you don't see this for what it is, you'll remain trapped trying to fix a relationship that's already emotionally dead. But if you look closely at the emptiness in their eyes, the coldness in their tone, the loneliness you feel even while sitting beside them, you'll see it. The person you loved is no longer there. Silent signal 2. They suddenly cut off contact, and you're left scrambling for reasons. By the time you've grown used to the emotional distance, the cold stares, the silence in conversations, the growing gap between their presence and their soul, you might think it can't get worse. But then they disappear. Suddenly, without a word, without explanation. Your messages go unread, your calls ring with no answer, their social media goes quiet, or you find yourself blocked without warning. And your first thought isn't that they've ended things. You think something must have happened. Maybe there was an emergency. Maybe their phone broke. Maybe they just need space. You become the author of 1,000 scenarios trying to explain the void they left behind. Because you care. Because you love them. Because you still believe the relationship deserves clarity. But the harsh truth is, they didn't vanish by accident. They pulled away by design. To a narcissist, silence isn't a pause, it's a weapon. They ignore you not because they can't respond, but because they want you to feel unsteady. They want to confuse you, to flood your mind with questions, to make you chase them while they sit back and watch. Their goal is to control your emotions from a distance. This kind of disappearance is a classic manipulation tactic known as emotional stonewalling or the silent treatment. But in the hands of a narcissist, it goes deeper. It's a silent declaration that you're no longer important enough to even deserve an explanation. You try harder, you send another message, you write long emotional texts, you lower yourself just hoping for a reply, even just a cold, I'm okay. But all you receive is deafening silence. And make no mistake, this silence is intentional. Because in the narcissist's mind, the less they give you, the more power they hold. They know that their absence will drive you crazy, that you'll search for meaning, that you'll call their friends, check their social media, stay up all night staring at your phone. And in doing so, they remain at the center of your emotional world, even while they're physically gone. And then, out of nowhere, they return. No apology, no explanation, just as suddenly as they left. And instead of confronting them with anger, you feel relief, grateful even. At least they're alive. But what you don't realize is this: they've just trained you to accept abandonment as part of love. This isn't love. This is manipulation. It's how someone who doesn't respect you gauges your emotional dependence. And the saddest part? It works. You start adjusting yourself, being less needy, less emotional, less annoying, but you're not becoming better. You're becoming smaller. You're shrinking to fit a version of love that's built on control, not care. And if you don't recognize it, you'll stay trapped in a toxic loop where they disappear at will and you wait like a loyal servant for their return. But this kind of silence isn't a timeout. It's a power move. This second silent signal, the calculated disappearance, the no contact without warning, is their way of saying, I'm done with you. And they don't even need to say it. They let the silence speak. They let you torture yourself with false hope. And in doing so, they make you doubt your worth, your sanity, your value. But here's the truth. They didn't stop communicating because they couldn't. They stopped because they knew you'd chase them. They knew they could vanish and still remain in control of your heart. And if that's not emotional manipulation, then what is? Silent signal 3, when they return, but they're no longer the same person. After days, maybe weeks of unexplained silence, they suddenly come back, just as abruptly as they vanished. No apology, no explanation, no remorse. And you, after spending sleepless nights worrying, waiting, and analyzing every detail, feel a confusing mix of relief and dread. Because deep down, you sense something has changed. And you're right, they're no longer who they used to be. The person who once made you laugh with charming wit now speaks in a lifeless tone. The one who once held you tightly in the morning now touches you like it's an obligation. The gestures that once made you feel loved now feel mechanical, cold, if they happen at all. You try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe they need time. You open your heart, hoping for connection, but their response is distant, or worse, sarcastic. They treat your emotions not with care, but with dismissal. Your efforts to reconnect are met with annoyance, as if your desire for intimacy is a burden. At this stage, their silence doesn't mean absence. It means emotional vacancy. They're physically there. They talk, they show up, but the person you knew is gone. What makes this moment so dangerous is that their half-hearted return reignites your hope. You think, at least they came back. Maybe this is our chance to heal. But the truth is, they didn't return to love you. They came back to keep control. Narcissists rarely release their supply easily. They pull away just long enough to create panic, then return just in time to reestablish dominance. Their goal isn't reconciliation, it's reassurance. They want to know you're still available, still loyal, still waiting. This reappearance often comes with confusing behaviors: warm one moment, cold the next. Sometimes attentive, other times emotionally absent. You find yourself living in constant uncertainty, never sure which version of them you'll encounter. That confusion keeps you stuck. You're no longer aiming for joy, you're just trying to avoid abandonment. You start adjusting yourself, shrinking your voice, walking on eggshells, all in hopes of preventing another vanishing act. But that's not love. That's fear-based survival. This is one of the most subtle yet powerful forms of psychological manipulation. The return without restoration. They give you just enough presence to keep you from leaving, but never enough to feel loved. And slowly you begin to accept emotional neglect as normal. Silent signal number 3 isn't about what they do. It's about what they stop doing. They no longer ask how you feel. They no longer care about your stories. They don't comfort you when you're hurting. They don't touch you with affection. They don't make you feel seen anymore. You're left alone, trying to keep the warmth alive in a room where the fire's already gone out. And if you're not aware, you'll mistake this return as a second chance. But it's not. It's part of a calculated process, a slow erosion of your worth until they can move into the next phase: devaluation, emotional harm, and eventual discard. Silent signal 4, they begin to subtly and relentlessly criticize you after they return. Distant, cold, and emotionally detached, you'll start to notice something else creeping in: subtle, constant criticism. Not the kind that comes from loud arguments or explosive confrontations. No, this is more dangerous. It comes through sarcastic remarks, passive-aggressive comments, and cold indifference that leaves you feeling guilty even when you've done nothing wrong. You tell a story you're excited about, they smirk and say, "That's not really interesting." You wear something you love, they glance and murmur, "A bit too old for that, don't you think?" You open up emotionally, they sigh, "Are we doing this sensitivity thing again?" These attacks aren't accidental. They're calculated attempts to chip away at your sense of worth, one subtle insult at a time. And the most dangerous part, they're disguised as harmless jokes or just being honest. You start wondering, am I being too sensitive? Maybe I am overreacting? But the truth is, you're being emotionally manipulated. Once the narcissist no longer sees emotional value in you, they have no reason to maintain the idealized image they once projected. Instead, they begin a quiet campaign of devaluation. And because they still want to control you, they won't go full attack. They bleed you slowly with words. Every look, every tone, every half-hearted comment is meant to send one message: you're not enough anymore. And the worst part? Over time, you start believing it. You begin to doubt yourself. You apologize for things you used to do freely. You hold back, you withdraw. You start shaping yourself to avoid bothering them. But what you don't realize is you're being conditioned to become a smaller version of yourself, less opinionated, less passionate, less confident. This criticism often extends into public moments. They interrupt you mid-sentence, they correct you in front of others, they make jokes at your expense with a cold tone. And when you react, they twist it. "Don't be so dramatic. Can't you take a joke?" This is a quiet form of psychological abuse. No visible bruises, but the pain runs deep. This is the phase where the internal destruction accelerates. They no longer need your love. They just want your submission. And the fastest way to get it is to convince you that no one else would want you. If you were once praised and admired, you're now seen as flawed, annoying, and too much. They flip the script completely. And because you're still clinging to the beautiful past, you work even harder to earn back their approval. But what you must understand is, you cannot win over someone who has already decided to devalue you to justify their emotional withdrawal. Silent signal 4 is when admiration turns to contempt. Love becomes sarcasm. Helpful feedback becomes subtle humiliation. And you're left wondering, where did I go wrong? What happened to us? Here's the truth. You didn't become less, you were just no longer useful to their ego. And now they're chipping away at your identity so you won't have the strength to walk away. But let this be your awakening, not your undoing. Because your worth is not defined by someone who no longer loves you. It is defined by your capacity to heal, to rise, and to say, I deserve a love that doesn't begin with idolization, continue with manipulation, and end with destruction. Silent signal 5, they vaguely mention someone interesting, and you realize you've been silently replaced. After all the emotional distance, coldness, and calculated silence, one day they return, not to apologize, not to reconnect, but to deliver another type of blow. Softer, more subtle, but far more cutting. In the middle of a seemingly casual conversation, they drop a line that sounds harmless. Lately, I've been talking to someone kind of interesting. They don't elaborate. No name, no details, just a half smile and a glance you can't quite decipher. But you, who have loved them deeply and felt every shift in their emotional temperature, know exactly what they're doing. That interesting person is not just a friend, and they want you to know it. You don't say anything, but your mind races. Who is this person? Are they dating someone new? Did it start when you were still together? And most of all, why mention this to you at all? The answer is painfully clear because they want you to react. They want to see a flicker of discomfort in your eyes, a flash of jealousy, a moment of vulnerability. They're testing you, not to understand how you feel, but to make sure they still have emotional control. When a narcissist starts vaguely referencing someone else, there are usually two clear motives behind it. First, they're trying to regain your attention. Maybe you've grown quiet. Maybe you've stopped chasing. That threatens their sense of dominance. So they introduce this new character into the story, not to replace you outright, but to disrupt your emotional stability. Second, they're subtly signaling that you're no longer enough. Without saying a single critical word about you, they craft a comparison. This new person is interesting. The unspoken end to that sentence is, and you're not anymore. And you feel it deeply. You start wondering, do they like this other person more? Am I being replaced? Was I ever really enough? You try to act like it doesn't bother you. You stay calm, but inside something breaks. And that fracture, that internal panic, is exactly what they wanted to trigger. The genius of this tactic is that it's all implied. They haven't admitted to cheating. They haven't even described this other person in detail, but they've planted the seed, and they let your imagination do the rest. You're now competing with a ghost. You're trying to measure up to someone who may not even be real. And in doing so, you shrink. They don't need to be in love with the new person. They just need you to think they might be. That's enough to keep you anxious, insecure, and striving. They casually drop more crumbs. She really gets my sense of humor. It's refreshing. Or he's got this way of seeing things. So calm and grounded. Each phrase feels like a slap, but delivered with a smile. It's not about building up the other person, it's about breaking you down. And when you finally ask, who is this person? They respond with feigned innocence, why are you overreacting? It's just a friend. That's where the gaslighting begins. They ignite your insecurity and then blame you for being insecure. It's emotional warfare, fought in whispers and glances, not shouts and accusations. This isn't closure. It isn't honesty. It's a strategic way of reminding you that you're no longer special without ever having to say it. They don't need to end the relationship. They just need you to feel that you're no longer enough. And when you feel that, you'll do exactly what they want. Work harder to win them back. You'll become more agreeable, more fun, more eager to please. Not because you want to, but because you're afraid of losing someone who already left emotionally a long time ago. That's the pain of silent signal number 5. It's not in the presence of a new person. It's in the calculated way they introduce the idea of someone new, simply to remind you that you've already been replaced in their mind. Silent signal 6, their body language completely changes, and there's no emotion left in their touch. There was a time when their hug made you feel safe, their gaze could melt you, and even the gentlest touch spoke volumes about your bond. But now, all of that is gone. No warning, no reason, no explanation, just an emptiness in every gesture, every glance, every silent moment. When a narcissist decides to emotionally detach, they don't need to say it aloud. Their body says it for them. And that's when you begin to feel something shift in the space between you, something cold, distant, and painfully deliberate. You sit next to them on the couch. They lean away. You reach for their hand. They don't squeeze back, or worse, pull away. You go in for a hug. They give you one out of obligation, stiff and half-hearted. The warmth that once flowed effortlessly between you now feels awkward, forced, or completely absent. What used to be intimacy is now avoidance. This shift is not accidental. It's not because they're tired or stressed. It's the extinguishing of emotional connection. Quiet, subtle, but brutal. And the worst part? You feel it happening in silence. No one says a word, but the truth is undeniable. Their body language becomes closed off, defensive, cold. They cross their arms while talking to you. They avoid eye contact when you open up. When walking together, they move ahead of you, no longer walking in sync. You start to feel like strangers living under the same roof, out of rhythm, out of step, out of reach. A person's body tells truths their words can't disguise. And with a narcissist, physical withdrawal often comes before the final emotional cutoff. They stop touching you, not because they're busy, but because they no longer feel the need to connect. The emotional bond is severed, and now the physical space reflects it. But what they'll never admit is that this withdrawal is also a form of manipulation. Because you, like anyone who truly loves, will start to feel anxious. You'll try harder. You'll reach out more. You'll attempt to reestablish the connection that once made you feel loved. But the more you reach, the more they pull back. The more you crave closeness, the more they feed you rejection. This isn't just a sign that something's wrong. It's a deliberate stage in their emotional exit strategy, where they slowly remove physical intimacy to keep you guessing, doubting, and desperate. You begin questioning yourself. Am I no longer attractive? Did I change? You alter your appearance, your behavior, just to get back a simple glance, a gentle touch, but all you get is a cold stare, a turned back, or a withdrawn hand. Silent signal 6 isn't spoken. It's communicated through the absence of what once needed no words. The gestures, the eye contact, the affection that once made you feel safe and cherished are now distant memories. And they don't need to say, "I'm done with you." Their body has already said everything. Silent signal 7. They begin rewriting the past, and suddenly, you're the problem. When a narcissist is preparing to end the relationship, they rarely leave quietly or gracefully. Instead, they do something disturbingly calculated. They begin to rewrite the entire story between you, twisting it in a way that benefits them and quietly destroys you. You were once the person they admired, praised, and spoke about in glowing terms. But now, somehow, you've become too controlling, too sensitive, too dramatic, and not just behind your back. Sometimes, right to your face. They start reframing everything, reinterpreting memories, distorting the truth, and bending every past interaction into something dark, something ugly. Times you were hurt become you overreacting. Moments you set healthy boundaries are twisted into you always needing control. Every effort, every act of love you gave is now stripped of context, repackaged, and used as proof that you were the problem all along. Why do they do this? Because they need a justification to walk away. Narcissists cannot tolerate being seen as the one who caused pain, the one who abandoned someone who loved them. They need a narrative that paints you as the reason everything went wrong. And if that means turning you into the villain of your own story, so be it. This manipulation is subtle, but its impact is devastating. At first, it sounds like small comments. You're always so emotional, or you tend to make things bigger than they are. But over time, you realize they're constructing an entirely new version of you, one that barely resembles the real person you are. Worse still, they don't keep it to themselves. They share these twisted versions of the past with others, mutual friends, coworkers, even their new partner. And you, the one who has already been left emotionally bruised, now carry the weight of being misunderstood, misrepresented, and betrayed in silence. You begin to wonder, maybe I really am too much. Maybe I didn't handle things well. Maybe they're right. And that's exactly the point. This is gaslighting at its most refined form. It's not just about confusing your present. It's about making you doubt your past. They want you to believe that your love was irrational, that your pain was exaggerated, that your loyalty was manipulation. Meanwhile, they present themselves as the reasonable one, the victim, the one who tried but just couldn't keep up with your chaos. It's a masterclass in narrative control, and they're telling that story to anyone who will listen. Silent signal 7 is when the narcissist stops being your partner and starts being your historian, rewriting your shared life with a pen dipped in blame and distortion. And they'll tell their version so many times, so convincingly, that eventually it becomes the new truth, at least in their world. And here's the most painful part. You can't control it. You can't stop them from talking. You can't undo the lies. But there's one thing you can do. You can choose what to believe. You can hold on to the truth of what you lived through. You can trust your memory, your feelings, your reality. You can walk away, not to fight, not to argue, but to protect the most authentic version of yourself from being dismantled. Silent signal 8, they publicly announce a new relationship, and it's their quiet way of saying you've been replaced. It's no longer vague, no more cryptic hints about someone interesting. Now, they've gone public with cold precision. You see their new relationship unfold across social media. Bright smiles, happy captions, intimate moments that look eerily familiar. The same poses, same settings, same gestures they once shared with you, now on display, but with someone else. There's no pause, no remorse, no respect for what once was, just one clear message: you've been replaced, and I want you to see it. For most people, moving on after a breakup is a normal part of life. But for a narcissist, going public with a new relationship isn't just a step forward, it's a calculated emotional attack. They don't want your blessing, they don't need your peace. What they want is your reaction. They want you to feel that gut punch, that spiral of inadequacy. They don't just move on, they weaponize their new relationship as a final silent blow. You might have hoped for a conversation, a shred of closure, some respect for the bond you shared, but they give you none of that. Instead, they erase you, quietly, efficiently, and then present their new partner to the world like you never existed. Even worse, they'll pretend it's harmless. We just started seeing each other, they might say. But you know better. You feel it in your gut that this didn't just happen overnight. There's overlap, there's deception, and now there's betrayal, wrapped in curated photos and carefully crafted captions. Make no mistake, this is no coincidence. It's a double-edged psychological tactic. On one side, they make you feel discarded, replaced. On the other, they use this new happiness to reinforce a narrative that you were the problem and they've now found someone better. And you? You're left drowning in comparison. You analyze every post, every smile, every detail, searching for the answer to the question haunting you. What did they have that I didn't? But here's the truth. You weren't replaced because you weren't good enough. You were replaced because you stopped serving their dysfunctional emotional needs. They didn't want a partner. They wanted someone to admire them, to obey them, to feed their ego. And when you began asserting boundaries, asking for respect, reclaiming your voice, you no longer fit the role. Their public display of love isn't a sign of moving forward. It's a sign that they never truly bonded with you to begin with. Because if they had, they would have honored the ending. They would have closed the door with grace, not slammed it in your face and flaunted the next chapter. The new relationship isn't about joy. It's about control. It's about punishing you with silence, then stabbing you with exposure. Silent signal 8 doesn't come in the form of a breakup text. It comes in a photo, a caption, a look in their eyes that once belonged to you, now directed at someone else, and you don't need their apology. What you need is the truth. Anyone who can showcase their next relationship by stepping over the ashes of the last one never deserved love you gave. After all the silent signs, the cold stares, the lifeless touch, the distorted stories, and finally the public display of someone new, you might still find yourself waiting for an explanation, waiting for a proper goodbye, waiting for an apology, waiting for something, anything that proves the love you gave wasn't meaningless. But that moment will never come. And here's the truth. You don't need it to. When a narcissist walks away in silence, it is not a reflection of your worth. It's the clearest confirmation that they never truly saw you, never truly connected with the real, vibrant, worthy human being you are. They retreat like a shadow, leaving behind only confusion, self-doubt, and emotional wreckage. But in that very emptiness, something powerful begins to unfold. You can finally see the truth. No more sweet words to mislead you. No more fake affection to keep you trapped. Just you and your power to choose freedom. You don't need a formal ending to give yourself permission to begin again. You don't need their acknowledgement of your pain to start healing. You don't need to chase anyone to prove you were worthy all along. You are already whole, even in the silence. And if you've made it to this point in the video, know this. You are not alone. There are thousands, millions who have stood in your place, who have been broken in silence by a narcissist's exit, but who have also risen, stronger, wiser, and freer than ever before. Let their silence be your awakening. Let their absence be your momentum. And let this story stop being about them and start being about you, your comeback, your strength, and the dignity you are reclaiming every single day. If this message resonated with you and you feel seen in these words, subscribe to the channel because this conversation isn't over and there is so much more you deserve to hear.